A couple of boys are bullying Owen, shouting about how he's a member of a house that's on the brink collapse, shouldn't get too arrogant. They mockingly offered to give him magic lessons, knowing his family has no talent for it. While it's true that his parents are magic-hating aristocrats, he claims to be the magician who will rise to the top. As he declares this, he summons a huge fireball, shocking the bullies. 2 years prior in the Pepper residence, a stout boy demands that his maids feed him. It's Owen Pepper, back when he was still 8 years old. He yells at them to bring whatever is ready to be eaten, even kicking them to follow his orders. However, his big figure makes him lose balance, and he falls back to hit his head hard. Pieces of memory flash through his mind. The maids worriedly look over him, wondering if the young master is okay. The accident made him remember his previous life as Sasaki Yuita, who was a salaryman before reincarnating into an awful and insolent brat. Wanting to hide in a hole due to embarrassment, he suddenly bows in sincere apology to the helpers. He proceeds to have dinner with his family, who lightly talk about how commoners exist to be extorted in order to fill the bellies of aristocrats. His parents are the region's feudal lord, Black Pepper, and his wife, Aisha Pepper. They stuff themselves with food, while viciously talking about their people's duty to feed them. As they have a fervent case of elitism, the commoners they look down on so much naturally seethe with hatred. And there's him, who was raised by such trashy parents, turning him into a pig. In his mind, he apologizes to everyone in their territory. The Lord notices him not eating and instantly fires the head chef, as he hears that his son can't muster an appetite. The boy asks him to not be hasty, discouraging him from discharging the man, and insisting that the problem is his stomach, not the food. Seeing his father's actions, he understands why he's hated so much. He managed to protect the head chef for now, but he has to be more mindful of his words moving forward. Approaching the chef, he shares that he wants to lose weight, and asks him to adjust his meals accordingly. The next step is jogging for exercise. Drenched in sweat, he pants and tries to push further, already out of breath. It doesn't last too long, and he quickly falls to the ground from exhaustion. A butler named Sebas approaches and kindly offers him a clean towel. Thanking the old man, he's greatly disappointed by his lack of stamina, his body already too heavy to move. Getting an idea, Owen asks if he knows an effective way to diet. He thinks about it for a while, and suggests that the boy practice magic. The idea surprises him as images of wizards and sorcerers flash through his mind. In this world, magic power is a prerequisite to becoming nobility, while only a handful of commoners can use magic. His parents are incapable of it, drawing disrespect from their peers. The butler says magic uses up a lot of energy, making it the most suitable method for him. Delighted, he asks to learn right away. Since Sebas can't use magic himself, he offers to call on a specialist for the young master, something they proceed with immediately. And so, several days later, the time for his first magic lesson has come. He hasn't gotten a wink of sleep, after looking forward to it so much. His teacher arrives, courteously greeting the young noble. He's stunned by the beautiful woman, who introduces herself as Katharina, and says she looks forward to their lessons together. Politely reaching out to take her hand, he bows and introduces himself with passion. His introduction takes her by surprise, as she hadn't expected him to behave this way. She avoids any clarifications on the statement, although he can already guess what she meant by it. While she thinks about him being described as violent and selfish, they begin the lesson. He addresses her as his teacher with gleaming eyes, saying she's going to teach him magic. Pleased, she moves on to briefly explain what magic is. Employing it requires magic power, so they start by trying to perceive that power. According to Katharina, magic is dependent on one's imagination and understanding of certain phenomena, and while chanting helps, ineptitude in these would serve as serious obstacles. He remains silent for a while, admitting that he can't feel his power. Confused, he asks what it should feel like in the first place. It differs among people, but for his teacher, it feels like a warm entity. Summoning some energy on her palms, she says that her magic is similar to a warm feeling in the center of her body. The explanation doesn't work for him at all, but she assures him that it's normal, and that it usually takes a week to feel magic power. Just then, he gets the idea to look into his previous life's memories, supposing that his power should probably be somewhere there. After a moment of searching, he delightfully announces that he's found it. While still shocked, she tells him to try moving the energy around next, something he immediately does with a bit of difficulty. Having managed to use magic, he notes that it can definitely help him lose weight, as he's already sweating like crazy. They move on to producing magic phenomena, although Katharina expected it to take 10 days before reaching that point. She says that her student seems to be quite the magic genius. Delighted to be praised, he thanks her with gleaming eyes. Surprised by his reaction, she whispers to herself, saying the rumors about him must have been completely mistaken. She asks him to watch her carefully. First, one must raise awareness of where they wish to produce magic from, commonly the hand, then conceptualize the desired phenomenon, quickly followed by an incantation. A ball of fire emerges just above her palms, and Owen is awestruck at the display of real magic. She asks him to try it out himself, so he runs to make a bit of space and pushes his palm forward as instructed. He focuses power into his hand, but the energy begins to get unstable, as he quickly realizes that this step is already very draining. His teacher worries that he's overdoing it for a first-timer, but he insists that he's fine. Determined to use magic, he imagines the effect again, wanting to start off with a ridiculously huge fireball. After shouting the incantation, his imagination comes true, as a fireball blazes from his hand. Katharina is in disbelief, seeing her student conjure a large spell. He turns back to face his teacher, proud of using magic for the first time, but soon loses consciousness and falls to the ground from exhaustion. He later opens his eyes and finds himself in his room, being watched by Sevas. Realizing what happened, he asks where his teacher is. The butler says she's being scolded in the Lord's room. Hearing this, he rushes up. In the office, Black Pepper is blaming the maid for his son's injury, saying the fortune they'd paid her is being wasted. Waving her apologies off, he proceeds to insult her family, calling them lowly and vulgar, much to her dissatisfaction. With a sleazy expression, he grabs her tight, saying he'll educate her himself. Unable to overlook this, Owen bursts into the room to stop his father. He sees his teacher's hand trembling from fear and confusion. Knowing he can't stop things through normal argumentation, he adapts to his father's mindset and puts on an immoral expression, saying he'll punish her instead, making sure to put her in place. Delighted by his son taking after him, the Lord agrees, telling him to let go of any leniency. Appalled by her student's shift in character, she's left speechless. Outside the room, she asks to know what he plans to do, expecting the worst. With his kind expression back, he apologizes for his father and asks if she's okay. Realization comes, and she confirms that he just rescued her from the terrible Lord. Understanding the situation, she hugs him in gratitude, saying she's decided to protect him, who was forced to match his environment to a shameful extent. It seems that she was under a misunderstanding about him, but she's a really good person nonetheless. 2 years later, Owen lets out a perfect fireball. He continued practicing day in and day out, and he can now give form to his imagination. Now, there is nothing as fun as magic for him. Thanks to that, he's gotten incredibly healthier, although there's still a bit more weight to lose. Just then, Sevas appears and says that a letter has arrived for him. Its content says that the daughter of Ducal House Adelheid will celebrate her 10th birthday soon. In other words, it's an invitation. As it'd be bad to decline the invitation, he first wonders if his parents will attend with him and decides to ask them first. In their office, they scoff at the ridiculous thought of going to such an event and tell him to go by himself. He expected it, of course, knowing that they just couldn't be bothered to go. In aristocratic society, supremacy revolves around magic ability, along with the idea that fat people are inept at it. His parents, fat and unable to use magic well, are insecure and avoid noble gatherings as much as possible. The same applies to him, but if a count family like theirs rejected the invitation of a duke house, it'd unavoidably cause offense. He's bad with such gatherings but is left with no choice but to go himself. Constantly acting inexplicably rude before regaining his memories, invitations to social occasions have gotten considerably fewer. However, he's not like his old self anymore, so things should work out much better this time. A week later, he attends the party as planned. Nervous, he hopes to fit in well, relying on the etiquette his butler had drilled into him. That said, he's well aware that overturning his bad reputation won't be so easy. For now, the goal is to not stick out negatively. Just then, he sees House Adelheid's daughter descending from the staircase. Her name is Natalie Adelheid, and he's mesmerized by how much she looks like an angel. The unsocial and infamous boy watches the brightly shining young girl greet her guests with a smile. The worlds they live in are truly different. He looks back at her just before getting some fresh air on the balcony. He sighs in relief, finally feeling calm after being alone. The birthday celebrant seemed to be incredibly blessed, but it felt like there was a shadow strewn over her cheerful face. Just then, a light voice speaks, saying she hadn't expected anyone else to be outside, and was surprised that she was wrong. He turns around and is shocked to see Natalie behind him. Natalie hadn't expected anyone else to be out on the balcony, but it seems that she was mistaken. The young lady of the Duke family introduces herself and asks to know who he is. Upon hearing his name, she realizes that he's from the infamous Pepper House, who are haughty but unable to use magic. He's surprised to see that their behavior has reached her. Remembering that he's supposed to be irritable, she wonders why he's calmly admitting to the description, so he says he isn't going to get mad at a child, forgetting that he's just as old as her. Reasoning that he's at an age where he wants to act all grown up, he insists that he's a child of great introspection. Amused, she calls him a strange boy, much different from the rumors surrounding him, for sure. Misunderstanding, he thanks her for the recognition. She says she wasn't praising him, but adds that he, at least, makes a good way for her to burn time. Despite it being her birthday, she admits that she's been bored for a while. They may call it a birthday party, but it's more of an exhibition, where she's constantly forced to display conduct appropriate for a Duke family. Moreover, she has to entertain all the guests as the centerpiece, which is her duty as the young lady, and it's a fate she has no choice but to accept. He ponders for a moment. In his previous world, birthdays were a joyful celebration for children, and it shouldn't be different in this world. He says that their time as children is precious, and it'd be a waste for them to spend it bored. The idea comes from his teacher, but he passes it on to her and invites her to come play with him. Reaching his hand out, he discourages her from making such tedious expressions on her birthday, reminding her that it's her special day. His words make her frown as she remembers the exhausting responsibilities she supposedly has. However, what truly matters now is what she wants to do. As she thinks about it, hesitating, he takes her hand, insisting that they're already friends and that they should leave already. Still comprehending how they became friends, she asks where they would go anyway. The boy wants to go to the garden, but they'd definitely be found if they passed through the hall. Using the fruits of his training for 2 years, he uses earth magic and creates a staircase from the balcony to the garden. As he's urging her to take his hand, her father exits to the balcony and says it's time to return to the hall. Owen suddenly grabs her by the shoulder and jumps high into the air, holding her tightly in his arms. She's afraid for a moment, but quickly realizes that they aren't falling. Because of his gravity-release magic, they're successfully flying in the air. The Duke watches from the balcony, shocked to see flight magic. It's his specialty magic, a result of using his past life's knowledge and his teacher's intelligence. In this world, it's understood that all things are bound to the ground. As magic requires understanding phenomena, this idea has become a hurdle for mages. However, due to his understanding of how gravity pulls objects down, he was able to use magic to overcome it. Moreover, flight magic is considered very special, since it could only be used by witches in the past, who are no longer there. According to Katharina, at the moment, he should be the only person capable of using such magic. They move farther up, and Natalie laughs in sheer amazement and wonder. He says to consider it his birthday gift, but apologizes as they begin to sink slowly. She asks him to stay up a bit longer, but flying with 2 people is too heavy. Insulted, she insists that she isn't heavy, and commands him to correct his statement. He smiles at her kindly, but admits that he really is at his limit. They reach the ground soon after, and she says he is much more amazing compared to his bad reputation. The boy blames youthful indiscretion and repeats that he's now at an age where he wants to act grown-up. While he insists that her happiness is what matters, she says he might get treated as a kidnapper. Hearing this, he suggests going back, but she hears the music from the grand hall echoing in the garden. The young lady asks if he can dance, but 1 week of practice really isn't enough. Not minding, she bows and invites him to dance, much to his surprise. Originally, the celebrant should have opened the dances in the center of the hall, so he has to take responsibility as her abductor. Apologizing, he admits that he isn't a dancer at all, adding that his hands are still sweaty from flying, but if it's still okay with her, then he'd gladly ask for a dance. Under the moonlight and in the middle of the garden, the 2 children dance to music from the hall, enjoying each other's company and no one else's. While it was awkward, they both did their best, and this was his first encounter with Natalie. Back in the manor, Duke Ralph Adelheid asks why Owen went ahead and kidnapped his daughter. He meekly explains that he wanted to celebrate his friend's birthday, afraid of the Duke's evident anger. He wasn't aware that they were so close, so the boy explains that they became friends just moments ago. To his surprise, the father laughs in delight, hearing that they're friends. He thought a scoundrel had gone off with his daughter, but understanding their relationship, he asks that they get along well, and quickly leaves the room. Owen sighs in relief, having expected the anger of the master's house. The Duke was personally designated as the backbone of the nation by the king, and also excels at magic. He could easily crush their family, both physically and socially. That said, it seems like the 2 children will be dealing with each other for a long time from now on. She asks if he's also going to attend a magic school, He vaguely recalls getting accepted into one, although he doesn't remember which in particular. The lady is going to attend Zansar and hopes that he does too, but that's a different matter from their friendship. They shake hands, agreeing to get along. He returns to the Pepper house later on. Sebas asks how his experience was and is glad to know that the young master made a new friend. Moving on, the boy asks about the magic school he's going to attend in half a year, saying his friend will be going to Zansar. He gets excited upon being told that he's registered at the very same school. Moreover, he can ask Katharina if he wants to know more about the academy, as she seems to have graduated from it. He immediately asks her, so she decides that their lecture that day will be about magic academies. Most noble children enter once they turn 10. It's an obligation for them, as their strong magic powers call for some sort of contribution to society. Commoners are also allowed to enroll, as long as they possess magic and enough funds to pay the tuition fee. He asks about aristocrats and commoners clashing when they're together, worried as he's seen his parents constantly discriminate against them. She can't say that it doesn't happen, but Zansar operates a merit-based system, a meritocracy, so to speak. However low one's birth may be, as long as they are well capable, then they should be fine. Wondering how far his magic can carry him, he begins to get excited once more. He gets distracted as she moves on to talk about other schools, thinking about earning recognition for his magical prowess and making friends along the way. Since his teacher boasted about Zansar offering a good environment for growth, he spent the next half year way too excited. Soon enough, the time to leave had come, and he bid farewell to Sebas and Katharina. They're the only two who came to see him off, which is understandable considering how he acted in the past. His butler notices the ambivalent expression on his face, so he admits that, while it might be too late, he's been thinking about how he should have treated everyone else with more kindness. He behaved unforgivably towards them, so it's only natural that they'd grown to hate him. Although he hopes they can find it in their hearts to forgive him by the time he returns home. The old man understands his sentiments but wonders if they're actually true. He opens the house's main door, and the boy is speechless at what he sees. In front of him, the entire staff has lined up to say goodbye, making a path to his carriage. With tears in their eyes, they tell him to be careful and to become a splendid person by studying hard. The kitchen crew reminds him to eat nutritious food in moderation and to stop eating things that have fallen on the floor. He can't believe what he's seeing. Sebas says he's changed greatly in the past 2 years. They do not know what triggered the complete transformation, but everyone there has already come to love his current self. They all stare at him with loving and hopeful eyes. Katharina praises him, saying she's well aware of how he gave his best during the short time they were together. He had expected to be kicked out of the house on a much colder note. Despite changing completely, his actions before were still his responsibility. Not in a million years did he expect such warmth from the people he hurt. Addressing them all, he admits thinking that they'd hate him, adding that he has no intention to wave away his past sins. As such, he'll remember how they treated him so kindly, and even sent him off with so much love. He thanked them with a big smile, crying and promising to come back to make them all happy. Katharina says she's glad to have taught him magic, but says her top priority was protecting his childlike innocence. He thanks her for being the best teacher he could ask for, and she hugs him tight, reminding him that she'll always be by her precious pupil's side. Just like that, he departed on his journey to the royal capital. With his heart beating hard, excited and expectant of what's to come, he safely reached the capital. He lays eyes on the area for the first time, surprised to see the carriages form a congestion. Although he accepted the situation and decided to wait calmly, shouting from outside disturbed his peace. A member of a marquee house is rushing everyone, saying he shouldn't be kept waiting. On the street, a boisterous lad is angrily demanding that they let him pass. Owen stays seated, not wanting to get himself involved. However, someone tells him to keep quiet as court ranks are irrelevant in the school. Furious, the boy turns back and asks who it is. A courageous girl introduces herself as Farin Antoni. He says he's never heard of her family, wondering which noble house it comes from. Told that she isn't a noble, he's enraged to know that a commoner is defying a marquee member like him. She repeats that ranks hold no bearing there, and that ability determines everything in the school. Annoyed, he humors the idea of proving his actual ability. Owen immediately realizes the terrible situation, but the boy has already summoned a powerful flame bullet, displaying his true power. The boy hurls his magic bullet at the girl, but Owen easily deflects it using his fireball. The girl thanks him for saving her from danger as the boy angrily asks for his identity. Having completely forgotten about him, Owen introduces himself. The boy laughs at him, calling the Pepper house a rundown one. Owen retorts that it's not safe to play with fire, which makes the boy insulted as he doesn't care what happens to the girl. The two of them create fireballs again, aiming at each other. Just then, a block of ice freezes the fireballs, shocking them. A woman appears, ordering them to stop their nonsense. Frustrated, the boy angrily barks at the woman, telling her that he's Dominic Sylphide, the next head of a Duke family. However, he notices that she's a 3-star magician. 3-star magicians are those who rank at the top, and only a few are qualified in the kingdom, which surprises the boy. The woman tells them that she's a teacher at the Zanser school and warns them not to cause trouble before enrolling. Owen and the girl immediately apologize, while Dominic appears forced to do so. The teacher leaves, and so Owen manages to enter the school peacefully after what happened. While looking forward to his school life, he wonders when he can be a 3-star magician like the teacher. However, he immediately stops himself from dreaming, urging himself to head to the dorms and start unpacking. Enthusiastic, he promises to do his best from now on. On the day of the entrance ceremony, Owen wears his uniform and proceeds to the hall, where he finds Natalie, who's in the same class as him. They exchange pleasantries, with Owen asking about her life so far. The girl admits that everything is incredibly boring and that she enjoyed the night they shared. Hearing this, the other students in class wonder what their relationship is. Owen panics a little, as he doesn't want to be misunderstood, but is glad to end up in the same class as her. Natalie points out that there's no surprise in this, as she explains that the school divides the students based on their abilities and their family's peerage. Furthermore, they're going to be in the same class for 8 years, unless they get booted from the next ability division in 2 years. Just then, the 3-star magician earlier enters the room and introduces herself as Chris, their homeroom teacher. Seeing her decorations, Natalie notes that they have an excellent instructor as first-year students. Chris lets the students introduce themselves one by one. The first one to introduce himself is Bergritton, the 3rd prince of the royal family. Next is Farin, recognized by Owen as the girl from earlier, and whom Natalie points out as a member of the Saints family who can use sacred magic. Hearing this, he feels that there are so many famous people in his class. Gathering up his courage, he introduces himself next, which earns whispers from his classmates that he comes from a rotten family. The teacher tells her class to keep quiet and let Owen continue. Shaken up a bit by rumors, the boy bravely tells his classmates that he'll strive to be a first-class magician and hopes to improve with everyone. His enthusiasm touches everyone, including his classmates, who initially believed the rumors. However, Dominic seems unhappy with his positive attitude and is envious of the attention he's getting. Meanwhile, a boy in a cloak is looking at him, declaring that he's found the perfect subject for his test on his medicines. He also directs his attention to Owen, whom he deems might be useful in his experiments as well. Chris tells her class that she's still a novice as a teacher and that usually class ends early on the first day. However, she wants them to have some fun and show their powers to her at the training ground. In the elementary education practice field, the teacher discusses the 4 primary elements of magic: fire, water, earth, and the wind. She reiterates that they're the primary ones because they're easier to imagine and materialize, which is important for magic. She demonstrates this and promptly creates a glacier of ice. She explains that the reason that she's so good at ice magic is because she comes from a snowy country and knows coldness very well. She then urges the students to hit the wall of ice with the best of their magic until they break it. However, the students' efforts are futile as they are still novices at magic. Berg's turn comes, and he activates his body-strengthening magic to chip the ice, earning awe-filled looks from his classmates. Natalie thrusts her lightning spear into the ice, breaking shards of it. The students and teacher are all stunned, clearly impressed by the 2 students. As Owen is busy admiring his classmates, suddenly a fireball hurls towards him, injuring him in the process. When he looks up, he sees Dominic smirking at him, obviously having aimed his fireball at him on purpose. Farin sees his wound and offers to heal it for him. She uses her magic, and they are immediately enveloped in a glowing light, healing him in the process. The girl then tells him that it's her way of expressing gratitude for the time he saved her. As Natalie is confused, Owen explains that he saved Farin from Dominic during the enrollment. Hearing this, she comments that the sing test must be his type of girl. The boy denies this and doesn't dare to say that his type is blue-eyed and blonde-haired. The teacher then calls Owen, as it's his turn to hit the ice. As he runs back to the teacher, the students begin to talk about him, saying he's rumored to barely be able to use magic. Because of everyone's attention, Owen suddenly feels conscious. He thinks about using his fireball, but it's not his area of expertise, so he decides to use his gravity magic and surprise them all. His classmates are dumbfounded to see him floating in the air, and he can use an impressive kind of magic. Meanwhile, Chris is amazed by his ability, as she never knew that others besides witches could use flight magic. As Owen lands gracefully, Dominic sneers, thinking that he's just faking it to float using wind magic. Witnessing their potential, Chris dismisses the class and assures them that they'll improve under her guidance, as she's a 3-star magician after all. As the students start to go back to their dorms, Natalie approaches Owen, and she invites him to go with her to the business district to do some shopping. The boy immediately agrees, anticipating that it could be a date between them. As they stroll around the shopping center, Owen asks Natalie what she's buying, and she replies that she doesn't have anything in mind, which surprises the boy. The girl informs him that they're simply going to explore the town, which excites the boy as well. They visit different stalls and eat delicious food. As they enjoy their snack, a filthy man approaches them, asking for his medicine. Spooked, Owen tries to shield Natalie as the man becomes more erratic. Suddenly, the man lunges at them, and so Owen uses his gravity magic to swiftly float into the air to topple the man using his body. The man drops to the ground as several onlookers start to gather around. A boy emerges from the crowd, saying that the man is his friend who's having a neurosis after running out of his sedatives. He quickly apologizes and picks up his friend. However, in reality, the boy is actually the mysterious cloaked individual earlier, who is simply checking out Owen as a tool and riling up Dominic for his experiment. However, seeing his gravity magic, he thinks that Owen is more interesting instead. It has been 2 weeks since the entrance ceremony, and the students have already gotten used to their daily lives in the magic dorms. Meanwhile, Owen enjoys the lessons, although complicated topics remind him of chemistry, which makes him feel sleepy. On the school grounds, Chris starts to teach the students about magic control, which will help them focus their magic on a single point. If they master this, they will eventually learn long-distance magic, which can help them widen their reach. She explains that it's a technique that gets more difficult with increasing distance and less magic effect. That's why the school doesn't value the technique very much. However, she thinks otherwise. She then creates an ice flow and almost lets it fall on Dominic's head, but she commands it to crumble just in time. The students are all in awe as she just demonstrates that long-distance magic provides an advantage for a magician. She further explains that enemies usually prepare defenses for attacks they can see, but surprise attacks from above can ultimately catch them off guard and defeat them. She reiterates that there's a clear difference in terms of ability between those who can control long-distance magic and those who can't. She also adds that she knows someone who can control her magic from miles away, making her an excellent magic user. So, she urges her students to practice their magic at increasing distances and get the hang of it. Meanwhile, Owen remembers that Katharina is good at long-distance magic, and she must really be a good magician without him fully realizing it. He suddenly sees a queue forming among the students eager for extra lessons from their teacher. As he doesn't want to waste his time, he asks Bert to teach him long-distance magic since he must be good at it because of his body-strengthening technique. However, the prince clarifies that he actually can't use magic to materialize things and can only use it inside his body to strengthen his physical abilities. Hearing this, Owen says that it must be rough for him, especially since he's a prince. Berg admits this, but he has already been over it since he met a teacher he respects, which Owen is able to empathize with. After their talk, he leaves the prince to start practicing on his own, and before he realizes it, the lesson is already over. However, as the night falls, Owen refuses to give up and continues his practice. He meditates, thinking that magic is all about imagination, so he may be able to pull something from his knowledge from his previous world. He contemplates using his knowledge of games to conjure legendary swords or monsters, realizing that magic is genuinely fun. Little does he know, Chris is observing him as he experiments with his magical abilities. A month after their entrance ceremony, Chais announces that a martial tournament is about to start in a week. It is a grand event organized by the school for students to challenge each other in a fight of magical abilities. She further explains that the elementary department will be represented by several members of the class, and she has decided to send Berg, Natalie, and Owen. However, her decision about Owen earns a negative reaction from Dominic, who says that his classmate doesn't deserve to be chosen. The teacher reprimands him for questioning her judgment and speculates that he just can't accept that he wasn't chosen. So to solve the matter, she decides that they will hold a mock battle between the two to see who's worthy to join the martial meet. Meanwhile, this is much more acceptable for the two students, as they can showcase their abilities and prove themselves. Dominic mocks Owen, saying he'll definitely be the winner. Later in a practice field, the two students are face to face as Chris tells them that the first one to surrender will lose, or until she has decided on the winner. As she exclaims for them to start, Dominic wastes no time and swiftly hurls a fireball towards Owen, who retaliates by creating a much bigger fireball to protect himself. As he watches his fire being consumed, Owen contemplates that his opponent is a pretty good fire magic user. He considers using his gravity magic but realizes that it is no match against offensive magic. What's more, he can't use other magic when flying. Having this in mind, he decides to use his trump card and calls forth an enormous fire monster using his imagination. He then commands the monster to attack. However, it is too late when he realizes that he went overboard, as his opponent can't match his power and defend himself. Dread fills him as he watches Dominic about to die, unable to control his power. Just then, Chris jumps in to intervene and protects Dominic with her ice flow, telling Owen that he overdid it. He immediately apologizes, saying that he got overly excited. However, after the ruckus, he is immediately declared the winner and is one of the students who will represent their department in the martial meet. The day of the Zansar Academy Martial Arts Tournament has come. Many people and students are talking about it and are buying tickets to enter the stadium. After the headmaster ends his speech, fireworks start to rise in celebration of the beginning of the tournament. In the player waiting room, the trio talks about their upcoming opponents. Owen thinks that it would not be such a big deal for first years like them to lose. However, the other two are willing to win it all, pressuring him to be in the same page. Berg tells them that their opponents will not be so strong, but that they must worry when they eventually have to face the student council president. Despite Owen's worries, the other two believe that they are strong. However, Owen is not so sure about himself since the only people he has ever fought are Katharina and Dominic. He also wonders why he is named team captain. The two tell him that it is because he is the strongest, but the boy does not think so. Natalie tells him she knows no one else who can do flight magic, although Owen thinks he can only do it because of knowledge from his previous life. He has no choice but to agree, and he tells his team that he will do his best. Once again, Berg hypes them up, and they proceed to enter the stadium. The prince valiantly walks up to the stage, and the people immediately cheer for him. The match starts, and almost instantly, Berg is able to defeat his opponent with a single strike. Natalie's duel comes up next, and like Berg, she easily overpowers her opponent, unleashing a series of lightning spells that render her opponent defenseless and defeated. She is soon declared the winner. Since their tournament is the best 2 out of 3, Owen didn't get a chance for a duel. In the subsequent matches, the two continued to dominate, leaving him without breaking a sweat and feeling useless. Since their matches for the day are over, Natalie invites Owen for lunch as Berg decides to spectate the second-year matches. On their way to the cafeteria, he asks the girl why her parents didn't come to see her. She tells him they're busy, a sentiment he can empathize with. Suddenly, he remembers that in his previous life, his parents would watch his events, and he feels sorry that he died before them. Sensing a shift in his mood, Natalie checks on him, but he quickly assures her that he's fine. They then notice the ground filled with students eager to spectate the next matches. They hear them talking about their team, wondering if they will win against the student council president. However, others argue that it's not possible even though Natalie and Berg seem to be strong, noting that their team leader is weak, and so he can't be trusted to win a duel. They continue to mock Owen, saying that he's a throwaway and an incompetent guy, not knowing that he can hear all of their insults. Cannot bear their judgments anymore, Natalie intervenes and tells them that they're just spouting nonsense and don't know who the real Owen is. Frustrated, she declares that Owen can win the whole tournament alone and drags him away from the crowd. After distancing themselves, the boy tries to console Natalie, but she starts crying, asking why he isn't angry with all the insults he's getting. Seeing her cry for him, he is determined to fight the student council president in the final match to prove himself. Owen tells Natalie of his determination to fight the president. The girl's sad mood changes, and she tells him it should be his promise to beat him. They bring this up to Berg in the waiting room, and he agrees that Owen should be the one to fight the president. He says he has no problem with it as long as it will stop people from ridiculing his friend. Knowing the president from last year's martial tournament, Berg thinks he will challenge the team's best player and will probably challenge Natalie. He warns Owen that even he will not be able to beat him so easily since he is said to be the strongest. Scared, he asks if he really is that strong. Berg tells him that he is, and that he is a wind magic user with no openings in both attack and defense. He can protect himself with a powerful, wide-range defensive wall that can repel or swipe away any attack. As for his powerful offense, he can release a barrage of high-powered magic without giving the opponent a moment to breathe. He has a wealth of experience as well as good judgment in the heat of battle. Berg thinks of ways for his friend to beat him, and he settles for him to physically enhance himself so he can surprise him with a quick attack. Natalie tells him that she will still be there for him if he loses, something that makes the boy even more discouraged. However, the girl is just teasing him for a laugh. The group wants to think of a strategy. In the meantime, Owen wants some tips from the prince on how to strengthen his body before the match. The next day, the tournament continues, with Bert winning the first match with his usual ease. With the next match coming, Owen is nervous, especially since none of the audience members think he has any chance of winning. The student council president, Kaizef Standard, is announced to the ring, much to the cheers of the adoring crowd. Owen feels so small, as the crowd tells the president to don't go easy on him. Kaizef admits to the boy that he was expecting to fight Natalie and now feels outsmarted for being taken away from a more glorious win. Owen feels insulted by this, so he tightens his fist. He tells the president that since Natalie is counting on him to win, he will hit him with everything he has. The president meets his declaration and tells him to go easy on him. The match begins, and Owen instantly runs towards his opponent with quick speed. Kaizef meets the attack with his blade of wind. Owen barely dodges by jumping and unleashing a barrage of fireballs. The strongest student only smiles and swipes away all the fireballs with a vortex of wind. Owen sees that his opponent can switch between offense and defense in an instant. He tells himself that despite this, he will not quit. He unleashes the Hellfire Ifrit, summoning the fire monster. It surprises the crowd and lets Natalie and Burge have hope for a win. Ifrit nears Kaizef, to the worry of the boy. As it hits, most of the ring becomes engulfed in an explosion of flame. Owen waits for the smoke to clear, tensely wanting to know if he has already won. Suddenly, a barrage of wind blades came his way, slicing through his uniform and wounding him, much to the worries of his team. As the smoke clears, the council president apologizes for underestimating him. He admits he is strong, but he cannot win against him due to his unbeatable wind barrier. Owen gets intimidated, knowing that the strongest student is finally getting serious. Kaizef declares his intention to use his full power this time, making Owen feel uneasy. The strong president envelopes the entire ring with thick wind, making escape from harm impossible for his opponent. Owen tries to cast a spell, but the wind blows away his magic before it can activate. Seeing no choice, he decides to make a finishing move. He activates Ifrit again, fully intending to blast away his enemy. Despite the potential danger, Kaizef is not worried. He eliminates the fire monster with little effort, right in front of Owen's shocked eyes. With his trump card gone, all he can do is dodge the blades of wind. Kaizef feels disappointed since he thought it would be a better fight, but now all he can see is an inexperienced first year. He encourages the boy to give up if there is nothing left in him. The strongest student powers up his wind, unleashing powerful magic that makes Owen bleed. The sight of blood makes the audience uneasy, and seeing how one-sided the match has become, they want someone to stop it. Burr cannot take it anymore. He wants to come into the match to stop it. However, Natalie calms the boy in the unmovable belief that Owen has it in him to win. He looks into Owen's eyes and sees that the boy has yet to give up. He screams Owen's name in a show of unwavering support. Meanwhile, Owen is trying to focus on what he needs to do to break his opponent's wind barrier. Realizing that it is like a typhoon, he also realizes that there must also be an eye. He levitates into the air with his gravity magic, much to the shock of Kaizef and the crowd and the hopeful face of Natalie. Most people think it is some kind of high-level wind magic, but the student council president knows this is impossible. He realizes that this is not just ordinary magic, but the legendary flight magic. From his view from above, Owen now confirms that there is an eye as he expected. He flies from above the opponent, knowing it is the barrier's blind spot. He flies down at great speed and readies his fist for a punch. Kaizef dodges, leading the floor to crack from the boy's iron fist and clearing the wind at the same time. Owen realizes that the off-balanced enemy is trying to conjure his wind again and unleashes a barrage of punches before he can. He remembers when his mentor Katharina was teaching him the art of fist fighting and how it is all about putting an opponent off balance. Seeing as Kaizef has his guard on his upper body, he attacks from below. Seeing as the enemy is trying to conjure magic again, Owen remembers Katharina's words about looking at the enemy's hands when he is off balance to dodge his magic. Remembering those words is keeping the boy on the offensive. He pulls out another iron fist, again putting a strain on Kaizef. While he is still reeling in the damage, Owen unleashes a colossal fireball. Straining so much energy, he goes to his knees, hoping that the opponent is down for the count. Kaizef is revealed to be unconscious. It is announced that Owen Pepper is the winner, and the crowd goes wild. His teammates run towards him and hug him in excitement and celebration. As the first-year team is being handed the trophy, the crowd talks about Owen with respect for his magical prowess for the first time. Within the crowd is Dominic, hearing all the accolades coming from the mouths of everyone. His face is full of anger, jealousy, and resentment, seeing that Owen has hugged the spotlight when it should have been him on the stage. Inside a manor hall, Owen is mysteriously doing something so beastly that it is making Natalie blush. While it may seem like they are doing something that they should not do as children, it turns out that Owen just cannot wait to eat the feast at the celebration party, and Natalie is trying to stop him. After the headmaster's speech, the boy stuffs himself down with as much food as he can, making the celebration like a cheat day for someone who diets a lot. His homeroom teacher, Christ, advises him to slow down. She tells him that a celebration party is not only for eating a hearty meal, but also for a chance to network and meet influential people from other schools. The boy says he would love to do it, but finds it hard to start a conversation when everyone on the floor is already talking. As the teacher tells him not to run away from networking, a man Owen describes as handsome approaches the pair. Chris reveals that his name is Ren, and that he is a teacher from Central. Hearing the school name makes Owen remember that there are 4 major schools in the country, including Zansar, Central, Waltz, and Heron Matter. Every time one of the schools has an event, the faculty of the other schools also come to the event. Ren praises the boy for his ability to do legendary magic in the finals. However, it proves to be insincere, as he comes closer to the boy's face and asks him if he is interested in witches in a terrifying manner. Chris tells the man to back off and asks if he is trying to poach the boy away from her. Ren tells her he has no intention, that while he is interested in the Pepper lad, he already has students just as capable as him. He introduces his student Thor. While the student is so shy that he is holding on to his teacher out of anxiety, Ren tells them he is a talented one. He then tells Chris in a passive, aggressive way that Zansar is no match for their school when it comes to education, after which the Central teacher leaves with his student. Owen sees that Chris and Ren do not get along and asks her what kind of relationship they have. She says that they both attended Zansar, and that the man got involved in a certain incident a long time ago, and since then he has been acting strange. She reminisces about how he used to be a sweet person who would follow her and Katharina around. Knowing this, she tells the boy that a single event can change how a person acts, and so she advises the boy to think about his actions before doing anything. The conversation turns to Owen asking about Katharina, so Chris reveals that they used to be classmates. Owen cannot process this and freezes. He then screams in shock that both his teachers were once classmates. Chris tells him that they were rivals who always improved each other by always fighting for the top spot, and that Katharina was the only one better than her in magic. This makes Owen feel proud of his first mentor. She envisions her and Chris together and acknowledges that his first mentor wins when it comes to the bosom department. Chris sees through the boy's dirty mind, and in her annoyance, she tells him to mingle instead of wasting time thinking about stupid things. As the boy searches for someone to talk to, a girl named Monet introduces herself as a huge fan of his. She shakes his hand violently in enormous excitement, thanking him for beating up an annoying person she knows. Kaizef interrupts the two and asks if the girl is referring to him. He greets Monet like they are good friends. However, the girl is only annoyed by seeing his face again. Kaizef teases her, saying that she is only cold towards him because she always loses to him. This only annoys her more, telling the boy that it will only be a matter of time until she wins something over him. Owen sees the two bickering and comments about how close they are, much to Kaizef's agreement and Monet's denial. The class president tells the boy that they are friends, but the girl tells him that they are rivals instead. Hearing that they are rivals makes Owen think of Dominic. However, he erases him from his mind, thinking he is more of an enemy. Monet tells him that she spotted him talking to his brother. As she describes him as a student from Central, he realizes that she is talking about Thor. She hopes that he and Owen will get along nicely. Kaizef comments on how she really cares about her brother, making the girl annoyed again. Suddenly, Owen's stomach starts to hurt, and he realizes that he must have eaten too much. He tells the two that he has to go to the bathroom and runs off. Unfortunately, he gets lost in the halls, not knowing where to go. He hears people talking in a room, and he wants to go near them to ask where the bathroom is. Taking a peek, he recognizes that one of the people is the teacher, Ren. He wonders who he is talking to and if the two are having a dispute. The boy is reaching his limit and so moves on to search more. He bumps into a boy student and barely holds it together. He asks where the toilet is, and the boy tells him it is around the corner. Owen runs fast, all the while thanking the lad. The yet-to-be-named boy smiles at what he saw, and he enters the room where Ren and a mysterious person are, still intrigued about Owen. Meanwhile, Owen finds the best relief since he has found the toilet just in time. As the first-year martial arts tournament has just ended, he is left with an improved reputation along with a bad memory of a stomach ache. They've returned to their normal school life, days after the tournament, and Owen's reputation has gotten much better after defeating the student council president. While still getting used to the people calling out to him, he sees Natalie. He runs to her, saying he's come up with a brand new spell, and wants to know what she thinks. Hearing this, other students gush over how impressive he is. The murmurs make their way to the lady's ears, and she turns away from her friend in frustration. She tells him to show his magic to a different girl, as he seems to have plenty of options now. Confused, he has no choice but to go to his next class, where they'll be taught about demons and magic stones. Teacher Squad asks if they've heard of these creatures, and a student says they're ferocious beings that have magical powers and attack people. Moving on, he asks if they know how they're born. Two hands shoot up, and Natalie is chosen to answer. She explains that magic stones accumulate miasma, turning it cloudy white, and eventually becoming a nucleus for demons. The phenomenon tends to occur more often with low-purity magic stones. Owen praises her, but she sarcastically says that he's still better. Magic stones also power magic tools and are convenient items that can replenish mana in case of emergencies. This is information that could be very important, especially for nobles who have the duty to exterminate demons. They'll practice slaying monsters when they reach their 3rd year in the academy. Just then, they question why there are 3 teachers present, including Chris, when it's just Squad's lecture. With a sly smile, she announces that they're going to practice slaying demons right now. The students clamor, reminding her that it's supposed to be an activity for 3rd years. She says she wouldn't do something so mundane, and says that the academy students are getting less competent by the year, so they've decided to make some changes. As Owen is thinking about how messed up the situation is, he realizes that the sudden change might have been brought about by Ren's recent taunting at the victory celebration. She denies the allegation, but that's obviously the case. But Squad apologizes and admits that he was the one who suggested the training. He's concluded that the team that competed yesterday is strong enough to handle such missions, especially the Pepper family's firstborn, who's far better than an average 3rd year. The teacher ends his explanation claiming responsibility. With that settled, they move on to form groups. The 4 leaders chosen are Owen, Natalie, Berg, and teacher Morris. His team members, Emilia and Farron, politely greet him, while Dominic avoids his eyes, insisting that he's the leader. Their teamwork isn't off to a great start. Each team has a designated area for demon slaying, and if they find themselves in a pinch, they can use a tool to call a teacher. With this, they proceed with the mission. Dominic wreaks havoc in the forest, unleashing his powers on goblins, and getting way ahead of himself. He rushes in alone, not having changed a bit since they first saw each other. The leader remembers Farron as the girl who can use holy magic, although he doesn't know much more about her. To his surprise, she talks about how he used to be just like their boisterous teammate. There are several rumors about him being undignified and hated by everyone for his villainous behavior. However, at one point in his life, he suddenly transformed into a good person, as if a different person took complete control over his body. Shocked by the uncannily close guess, he denies it, saying he just received guidance and was disciplined by a good teacher. She can't completely believe it, but says she can relate somehow. Her life before was like walking hopelessly in the dark. Both her body and soul were devastated. Then someone reached out and lifted her up, which is how she changed for the better. Ever since then, she's done everything in her power to be a new person, despairing to be like her savior. Hearing this, he's amazed by how she's been a saint from the beginning, and never lost her way despite it all. She asked about his own teacher, and he proudly calls Katharina an amazing mage, deserving of all his respect. Like his teammate, he wants to be just like his savior, which is why he enrolled in the first place. She understands, but asks what he means by being an amazing mage. Confused by the seemingly self-explanatory question, he struggles to expound on what he meant. She apologizes, saying she wasn't making fun of the person who taught him. When he thinks about rationally, he can't say what kind of mage he wants to be exactly. Of course, he wants to be as skilled as Katharina, but it's too vague of a vision for the future. He says he'll think about it more, and she encourages him with a smile, promising to root for him. Just then, they hear shouting from nearby. Emilia is pulling Dominic, who wants to search for a stronger demon, but she argues that they're supposed to stay in a certain area, and that the point of the exercise is to simply get used to demons. Owen tells him to stop whining and start acting like a leader if he wants to be one so much. Furious, he says they have no right to tell him what to do, and runs off on his own. As the two are talking about following him in, Farron meekly says that she's getting a really ominous feeling for some reason. Just then, a loud shout rings from Dominic's direction. They run after him, worried from the ear-piercing cry. However, they're shocked to see an enormous demon with a pig's face. Towering over them is a hideous demon with the face of a pig. Remembering their lessons, they identify it as an orc, a beast that's normally subjugated by several mages. However, its sheer size is too big to be a normal orc, so the one in front of them, Must be a high orc. The monster lets out a gurgling noise, gazing at them with sinister eyes. Meanwhile, a cloaked figure watches them from high up a tree, wondering what they're going to do next. The odd boy thinks about Squad, who told him about Owens with craft magic and prepared a magic stone that can summon a high orc. It had normally taken an elite group of knights and mages to even stand a chance against such a demon, so he'd love to see if the young mage has more tricks hidden up his sleeve. Dominic screams in terror as the demon raises its club high, but being so loud will only make him a target. Before it could bring its club down, Owen hits it with a big fireball, but it only glares at him in anger, exuding immense pressure, and is completely unaffected by the spell. The rowdy boy continues to shout and runs away alone. He's a pathetic observation target, but it only makes things more convenient for the mastermind. Amelia is dumbfounded by how he's running instead of calling the teachers using the magic tool. Meanwhile, Owen is still launching fireballs at the beast, telling the others that they have to get away. While the enemy is distracted, he strengthens his body and dashes forward to grab the girls. They have to do whatever it takes to escape, so he jumps up with the two ladies in each arm and releases gravity into the air. As the girls are in awe of his flight magic, the orc seethes with anger as its prey gets away. He's unable to speed up, dragged down by the weight of two extra people. Just then, they'd bring his attention to the demon, as it is obviously preparing to throw its club at them. He urgently calls out to the two, saying he can't use other magic while flying and asking them to block the weapon. Immediately obeying, they send spells out. Even before the demon could launch its attack, they hit their mark, but they don't do much other than anger the orc further. It gives out a deafening shout, reaching the sky. Suddenly, the boy is unable to move further and falls as he loses control of his magic. Amelia says that a high orc skill set includes a paralyzing roar. As they come crashing down, he uses his gravitational release at the last second, saving them from lethal damage. However, his shoulder hits the ground with so much force, dislocating the joint. He can't fight properly like this, but they don't have time to heal him up. He commands them to run. They'll be wiped out hopelessly there, so they have to go get the teachers, while he does his best to hold it back. Farn tries to argue, but they know that it's the only way. They turn back one last time, telling him to stay alive. As the demon looks over his escaping targets, Owen calls it out, conjuring and launching another big fireball. It swats the flames away and swipes at him, with speed disproportional to its mass. The stranger on the tree says it'd be boring if he just stalled to let the girls escape. He takes another magic stone out, saying he'll let them have fun with something else. The young mage looks at the tree, snapped in half by the demon's ridiculous strength. Getting hit just once would probably be lethal, and he'll likely be cornered if he keeps on playing defensively, making it stagger as possible. But weak magic won't be able to do any real damage. Ifrit is an option, but there's no opening to chant. Just then, he remembers that magic is about thinking outside the box. The show becomes repetitive for a second, but it doesn't last long as they realize that the orc is now surrounded by fallen logs. Apparently, the young mage wasn't just running away. He says it should pay more attention to its surroundings and uses the opening to speak Ifrit's incantation, planning to burn the demon along with every log there. The fire summoning materializes and sets fire to everything around it. Even if it isn't enough to kill the orc, it should be able to trap it for a while. However, it swipes and swings its huge arms in anger and turns toward the boy, with skin riddled with burn marks. Facing his enemy, he hopes for the teachers to show up soon. Meanwhile, the two girls rush back, almost reaching the safe house. However, they're unable to move forward as they suddenly find themselves surrounded by goblins, presumably made from the mysterious person's magic stones. The two girls fight off the goblins by themselves, aiming to get to the teachers for Owen's sake. Farn informs her classmate that there's little miasma in the area, so they can go back safely. However, she decides to go back to Owen to support him. Amelia tries to stop her, but she's determined to help the boy. As she runs toward Owen, she thinks that as a saintess, it's not right for her to run away, as this is what her mentor would do as well. Soon, she spots the boy still fighting with the high orc. As the beast doesn't feel her presence yet, she tries to surprise and attack it using her holy magic. She unleashes her spear of light. However, it doesn't affect the orc at all. If any, she only manages to divert its attention to her, making the orc attack her with its club. Owen immediately protects her but gets hurt in return as he is smashed onto a tree. Farn blames herself for being useless and tries to direct the orc's attention to her once again using her spear of light. In his worsening state, Owen tries to use his final strength to use an attack that he hasn't used before and unloads a strike from a piercing bullet at the orc. The beast is immediately downed and remains immobile on the ground. Farn immediately rushes up to him, healing him with her holy magic. He then asks about Amelia, and she informs him that their classmate is getting help from their teachers. As she heals him, he reprimands her for returning to save him, as she could have died. However, she dismisses his concerns, believing that a saintess must be willing to sacrifice for others. The boy disagrees with this, arguing that she shouldn't easily risk her life. Meanwhile, the mysterious boy continues to observe them, determined to test Owen's limits and eliminate the distraction. He then resurrects the High Orc, which immediately towers over the two, filling them with fear.